Have you ever typed your entire research question into a database and found nothing useful at all? So in this video, we're going to break down how to turn your research question into a set of keywords that you can use, but be sure to check out the description down below to use the timestamps to jump to whatever part of the video is going to be most relevant for you in your research process. Now, doing research is a lot like grocery shopping, but when you go into your favorite grocery store and you have no idea about the specific ingredients that you need to make said recipe, that can lead you to walking around for hours confused because you don't know what specifically you need to accomplish your goal. That's usually been the problem that you've been encountering if you're going into the library databases and you don't know what you're actually looking for specifically, but you just have a general idea of what you want. And so doing research is a lot like cooking, where your research question, again, is like your recipe. It tells you what you're trying to create or discover. But those keywords specifically are your ingredients. Those are the specific items that you need to help answer your question or accomplish your task. Basically, your keywords are how we break down your big idea, your research question, into searchable pieces so that the databases can guide you to the right aisles of information and save you a lot of time while you're researching. For the rest of this video, I'm going to walk through how to actually find keywords from your research question. So if you haven't done so already, be sure to have a pencil and paper or a notepad so that way you could take notes about your research question and overall process as we go about doing this together. Now, this is just one method that you can use to find keywords. You can determine the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why based on whatever topic that you're interested in. Now, it's important to note that every single one of these categories won't be entirely relevant for your research question, but it's a good tool for you to have in your back pocket as you're working on your research process because it may actually be relevant for you. So let's walk through these one by one. And as I break down each one of these categories, I'm going to give you a few seconds for you to think about how this applies to your own research question. The who. Asking yourself who is affected by or involved in this topic. Now, these can be things like organizations, institutions, demographic groups, or the age ranges. These all can fall underneath the who is being affected by your topic. Now, I'm going to give you a few seconds for you to write down the answer to this question as it relates to your research question or topic. The what. Ask yourself, what is the main issue, event, or practice or concept that I want to learn more about as I am doing research? Basically, ask yourself, what's happening? What is at the center of this question? This could be things like programs or initiatives or concepts. So take a few seconds to think about what is the what as it relates to your research question. The when. Ask yourself, is there a specific time period or age group or season or historical moment that matters a lot to my topic? The where. Where does this issue take place? Or is there a certain setting or location that I want to focus on? The why. Why is this topic important? Or what are some outcomes or impacts that I'm interested in exploring? When it comes to this category specifically, this may be something that's more implicit and not stated clearly in your research question, but something that you as the researcher know that you want to investigate further. So this might not be something that you see on the paper right now, but something that you know internally that you want to make sure that you are finding as you're doing research. I hope you took a few seconds while we went through each one of these categories to jot down a few notes about what the who, what, when, where, and why could be when it comes to your project, so that way you can understand how these categories really apply in practice. But understand, like I said, every single one of these categories won't be used every time you have a research question, but they are a good strategy for you to utilize because even if you just know the who and the what, or you know the what and the why, it's a good launching pad for you to be able to figure out keywords to better guide your research. Now let's walk this through with an example. Let's say we're doing research on how can community gardens improve health and well-being. Determining the who of this question can be a little challenging because there's not an explicit group of people stated in the question. However, when you think about who is being affected on this topic, it could be things like neighborhoods or families, elderly people, children. So while it's not explicitly stated in the question, I can still generate a good list of things that are a part of the who based on who is being affected by it. Now, the what is a little bit more clear. We're focusing on community gardens. That's the overall topic of this research question. However, it's important to know that as you're finding keywords, that you may have to also come up with a few synonyms for some of your keywords, just so that you have different ways of researching it as you're going through the databases. So yes, I want to look at community gardens, but some other words I may want to keep in mind that are the same as community gardens, but just phrased a little bit differently, are things like urban gardening or shared green spaces. The where, when I think about community gardens, it's not explicitly stated here, but I'm personally interested about it in a more urban city context. So thinking about cities or neighborhoods or schools are all things that are going to be really top of mind for me that I want to research as I'm doing my project. The why. This is something that is explicitly stated in the question, but the why this matters or what is the impact of this is all about improving health and well-being. So of course, health and well-being are two key words that we want to keep in mind. But going back to what I said about synonyms, I may want to think about physical health or mental health, social health, breaking it down that way, or thinking about well-being in terms of things like nutrition, to think about how I can further expand my searches to find what I'm looking for. Now, all that together allows us to have a really robust list of keyword options that we can pull from to do our research. Now, it's important to know that we will not be using all of these words when we're doing our research. So once you have gathered your list of keywords, I want you to at least pick 2 to 4 words that you want to start off with as we go into the databases to do research. So for me, I'm probably going to pick community gardens, cities, and health just to get us started. And as we're doing our research in the databases, we can refine our search a little bit more, pick different keywords, mix and match them a lot more to make it more relevant to the topic as we're researching. Now that you have your keywords, you're probably wondering, where do I go next? Well, there's a video on the screen now that I want you to click on where we're going to take these keywords and plug them into the databases so we can start figuring out how to actually navigate the University Library's databases effectively.